You're listening to 13 Questions with Scary Terry's Saturday Nightmare. We're a 3-hour metal show heard every single Saturday night from 9 until midnight on Rock 94.7, 102.9 in central Wisconsin, and also online worldwide at rock947.com/listen-live. Our guest tonight is Mark Barney Greenway, lead vocalist of Napalm Death.
Now, Barney, back in 1991... I caught you guys in Cincinnati, Ohio on the new Titans on the Block tour. It was Sick of It All, Sacred Reich, Sepultura, and you guys with their new lead vocalist, some guy with long blonde hair called Barney. Now, after 23 years on the road, what is your most memorable moment that you can share from being on the road without drawing the attention of law enforcement? And you may have diplomatic immunity in the States, so, I mean, anything goes here.
Right. I think, you know what, there's been many memorable moments. I mean, Napalm's been a trailblazing band, you know. I mean, we basically played a lot of places where bands had never been before. We were all almost like everybody's guinea pig, you know. And that is mainly down to us not believing the hype. You know, if the major media organisations put it out that people weren't to go to certain places, it would actually give us more incentive to go there, you know what I mean? And we always did that. You know, we always loved that. That's part of the reason that's kept us going for so long, is that we were able to go to these places and we were never scared to go to places. And so rather than doing the same gig circuits time after time after time, we always had a fresh perspective on things. And it certainly gave me a greater appreciation of the world at large. It made me realise, and it actually reinforced my views that a lot of these cultural barriers that are put up between people are just nonsensical, you know. And so to come back specifically to the question, I think being in the Soviet Union, like when it was still the Soviet Union, in Russia, in the heart of the Soviet Union, was just mind-blowing. You know, admittedly, it was the last couple of weeks of the Soviet Union before the general structure kind of collapsed. I mean, it was just the most intense feeling, you know. I mean, really, to see people in the country at the time who were, like, looking just really dazed and confused because there was a feeling that they were about to get, like, to be able to gain a lot of self-expression in a short space of time, to be able to indulge in that, something which they hadn't had, of course. And I think that, it was really, really, really strange, but really great at the same time. And it was historic, you know. I mean, yes, the bands had been in before us, but it was a very corporate sort of arrangement with the US, with the Russian government. I think a deal had been struck with the Soviet government at the time, which allowed that Moscow Peace Festival thing to go in there first of all. And we went in there not long afterwards. But we went in entirely independently. And so it was, with all the pitfalls, you know, that entailed, like being at a restaurant on the River Volga and having a whole table of KGB people watching us, you know. I mean, that was, you can imagine how intense that was.
That's got to be a little disconcerting.
Well, it was somewhat, you know, but the Russian guys that were with us were just like laughing, you know. They were like, "Oh, don't worry about them," you know what I mean? And we were kind of reassured by that, you know. But it was great. The people were fantastic, you know. So, but it was a historic moment, you know. So you can't really top things like that. I think you'd probably agree, you know. So.
Now, Barney, you've been a vegetarian since you were a teen. Is it tough to support that diet when you're on the road?
You know, like with a lot of other things, it depends how you apply yourself. You know, see, my mindset is all important in this because, like you say, it's been since I was 14 years old, and I am so staunch generally about animal welfare. I'm so strongly believing it that nothing could make me sort of revert back to the diet that I had before I was 14 years old. And so I think when you have that kind of drive for something, I think you'll find a way, even when there seems like there's not a way. I mean, I actually prefer to eat vegan, which is no dairy, etc., etc., etc. But now that's tough. That can be really tough sometimes. So, being vegetarian is not too much of a problem these days. It's doing the vegan thing that can be quite problematic, So I'm not really sort of an iPhone person, but I know that there's an app that people use on their iPhones called Happy Cow, which is finds vegetarian, vegan restaurants in the locale of wherever you are in the world, and that can be really handy. You can find vegan restaurants in the most in places where you would not figure that they would be, so those things are quite handy sometimes.
You're listening to 13 Questions with Scary Terry's Saturday Nightmare. We're a 3-hour metal show heard every single Saturday night from 9 until midnight on Rock 94.7, 102.9 in central Wisconsin, and also online worldwide at rock947.com/listen-live. Our guest tonight is Mark Barney Greenway, lead vocalist of Napalm Death.
Now, Barney, Napalm Death has a lot of European gigs booked at this moment. Do you guys have any plans to hit the U.S. behind Utilitarian?
Yeah, we've been talking about the U.S., but, and we will definitely come at some point. We've got the Maryland Death Fest, which we're doing in March. But in terms of a club tour, the problem is with the States right now. And, one of the last things that my old friend Mr. Bush did, before he left office, was to ramp up the cost of entertainer visas for foreign bands coming in, and it really screwed with a lot of people. A small to medium-sized band like us, it's a real hit. It really is very expensive. So that in itself can be a little difficult. Because of course, the other thing is that gigging in general in the US right now is quite tough. A lot of tours are really struggling, and so we definitely want to come, but we've got to spend some time and really consider how we're going to do it. We have to make a good package, of bands, because I think people now, if Napalm came and it was just local supports, that wouldn't be enough for people. The kids would want to see more than that. So we have to spend the time and make it good with a few bands, and of course, equally as importantly, make sure that the ticket price is fair. I think that's really important, and then see what happens, really. But we're definitely going to come. We wouldn't leave it. We wouldn't sort of leave it. It's just going to require a bit more sort of pre-planning than it would have perhaps in previous years. So.
Well, this next question kind of dovetails into that one, as long as we're talking about the realities of today's music business. In 2001, Napalm Death released Enemy of the Music Business, and things have changed quite a bit since that time. In your estimation, who's the biggest enemy of the music business today?
That was a critique at the time of the monopolisation of major labels of the music business. Of course, a lot of people think it was just a solitary stab at our old record label, Earache, and it wasn't, yes, there were elements of that, but it would be a little small-minded to just, aim all that at one record label. As mine was more of a criticism of the major label monopolisation of the music industry. They had everything sewn up, They were pretty much price fixing, with the cost of CDs to the public. And I really think that needed to be broken, that whole thing. And it was by virtue of the internet, which gave the power back to the people, you could say. And so that's quite a nice little model right there for a lot of things. And I think there are other monopolies, that need to be broken, where major corporations have got advertising, club licensing and ownership sewn up. That needs to be dealt with, from the monopolies end of things. So that was the critique at the time. So those are the consistent kind of barriers to fair operation within music.
With all of your experience that you do have in the music business, what advice would you give to a musician just getting started today?
I would say if somebody promises you the world, it's usually a crock of to be honest. You live and die by your own decisions with music, I find. And I think, you know what, if you do a band and someone tells you that what you're doing is not right, then of course it's always good to take advice from people. But if after that advice you still believe that what you're doing single-mindedly is the right thing to do, then you must do that. You must do that. So, yeah, I mean, if somebody promises you the world on a plate, don't believe them. Live and die by your own convictions. Always be open to advice, because there's nothing wrong with that. And just enjoy yourself. And if it works, fine. If it doesn't, at least you tried. Give it another go. Walk away from it for a little while, give it another go. And, just see where you get. I mean, it's really tough for new bands out there, no question, And I wouldn't discourage people, of course, because we need a healthy music underground, and a healthy base level of bands. We need that. We need new bands to come through, but stick with it. If it doesn't work out and you feel like you're kind of losing interest, then don't do it anymore. But at least give it a go,
Absolutely. That's good advice for life outside of the music industry. Now, after all this time in the biz, you've been asked just about every question in the book. Is there a question that you wish someone would ask you in an interview, but no one ever does?
Are you gay?
All right, I'll ask. Barney, are you gay?
No, I'm not, but there's lots of rumours about me out there. I mean, not that it matters. I mean, I find it quite amusing. I'm deeply touched by that, actually. But, I mean, I think people sort of put two and two together and make five, because I've always been very open about talking about things like sexuality and stuff. People, come up with a miscalculation and just assume that you're gay, and I'm not, but it is quite amusing. But nobody will ever ask me that outright, and I'm always willing to talk about stuff like that. People shouldn't be afraid of discussing stuff like that openly, So.
Well, I'm glad that we were finally able to handle that for you, man. I mean, that's I try to provide a service to the metal community on this show. So.
Oh yes, yeah.
That's Mark Barney Greenway, lead vocalist of the legendary founding fathers of grindcore, Napalm Death. Like them on Facebook. Follow them on Twitter at napalm_death. Check out their official website, napalmdeath.org, and make sure you pick up their 14th album, Utilitarian, when it comes out on February 28th. Barney, I thank you so much for taking time. I've been a big fan forever. This is the sort of thing that I got into radio to do.
All the best, my friend. And I'm humbled by your outro as well, by the way, as much as your intro.
Aw, shucks, twernt nothing.
Speak to you later, man. Bye-bye.
And thank you for listening to 13 Questions with Scary Terry's Saturday Nightmare. Scary Terry's Saturday Nightmare is a 3-hour metal show heard every single Saturday night from 9 until midnight Central Standard Time on Rock 94.7 and 102.9 in Central Wisconsin, and also worldwide online at rock947.com/listen-live. Look for Scary Terry's Saturday Nightmare on Facebook and give us a like when you get a chance. I'm Terry Stevens. You can find me on Twitter at TerryRock947. Thanks again for listening.